everybody. Good evening. As just mentioned, my name is Thomas Pristow. I am a senior director with Elevance Health, formerly known as Anthem. Changed the name about a year and a half ago, confuses everybody. I'm part of the National Foster Care team that developed programming for states that want to move toward managed care. One of the great programs that we're supporting is Skill Systems that was developed by Dr. Julie Brown. She'll be talking in a minute about this. And this program is underway in a number of different organizations in Kansas. So Dr. Brown and I are very happy to be here. There's a lot of really good information that she's going to impart. And if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them, I think, towards the end. So Dr. Brown, it's all you to introduce the skill system.
Right. Well, hey, everybody. It's really nice to be here. And so I've got a bunch of slides that we're going to look at, but hopefully it won't be too boring. But let me share my screen. And like Thomas and Radim said, my name is Julie Brown, and I'm the, hang on one second, the slideshow, start from the beginning. There you go. So I'm the author of the skill system. And we're going to spend some time tonight talking about what that is. If you haven't done this, and I don't know if you've got you must have maybe your phones nearby. I'm not sure if you've done it yet, because I think, did we email Ranim about this, about folks doing it? If you haven't downloaded the Skill System app onto your phone, it would be great if you could do it now. So if you have an Android phone, just go to Google Play and type in Skills System and download that if you haven't done it. It'll be kind of fun to be able to look at that as we go through some of the skills slides. If you don't have it, it's not a problem. You can just look at what we're talking about. So what are we going to talk about tonight with managing emotions? One cool thing is that there's some free stuff that you guys might be able to get through Thomas's company is giving away free training for the skills system, and all of that's going to be going through Hannah and Ranim at the center. And so we'll talk about how to access some of those things. We're going to talk about emotions, like regulating emotions, and then what happens when emotions get dysregulated. We're going to do a little overview of the skills system, which are some emotion regulation skills. And then I'll give you a little tour of some of the resources so you can get a little bit of more of a sense of it. And then there's like a little skills coaching scenario that I'll go through that might kind of bring it into practice for us, so that you can sort of get more of the application of the skills for you folks that are either parents or working, with children. So some of the free resources, and I forgot to change this. I do this every time. I forget to look at how they come in. But so Elevance is going to be giving some preliminary consultations out to folks as far as if you're working with an agency, as well as access, whether you are a parent or you are working with an agency, to a 2-day skills training, a skills instructors training. And then we also have some e-learning memberships to give out to you. So this will all make more sense in a few minutes when we go through what each one of these are. So we'll talk about how to access things, and in case you have to leave before the end, basically you'll be reaching out to the Families Center and contacting Ranim and Hannah to try to make those connections, and they'll reach out to Thomas and I to make these. So that's just the easy thing to do, is hook up with them. Say, yeah, I'm interested in knowing more. So let's get started with, understanding some of the basics of emotional dysregulation and emotional regulation. So a long time ago, when I got in the field, I was working with some youth that had intellectual disabilities and mental health problems. And I noticed that, they had a lot of behavioral challenges, and I had no idea what I was doing. And so I got training in something called dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. And that was for folks that their emotions were really all over the place, and they really had challenges not having strong enough emotion regulation strategies. And what I noticed was that the kids that I was working with were really similar to these adults that were being treated with DBT. And when they explained it, about what happens when you lack emotion regulation skills, is that our emotions go really high, really quickly. And then once they're really up really high, and we use this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 feelings rating scale. So 0 to 3 is when you can kind of think clearly. And then 4 is when you're starting to get kind of dysregulated and confused. And then 5 is when you're hurting self, other, or property. So I would notice that these kids would like go up really fast, really quickly. And then what happens, it's quickly, and it also stays up there for a pretty long time. And so what happens is when this emotional escalation happens, that their thinking would get really unclear. And it was hard for them to remember their strategies that they'd been learning. And then also their behaviors started getting pretty desperate, kind of reacting to situations. What I didn't realize was that really it's hard for people to get their identity and really be able to manage relationships either when they're experiencing this quick escalation. So what kind of things do we see in the children's lives or in parents' lives or in people's lives that that have this, what we would call emotional vulnerability, or this lack of emotion regulation skills? So what we might see for a person that has this challenge might be that they would have difficulty with like self-care. It would be difficult for them to sort of do some of the more healthy routines in life. They may have difficulty with time management, doing chores, like taking on responsibility is difficult because they have a hard time kind of sort of handling the distress that demands cause. So it can create some instability there, to the point where they might have difficulties really with certain sort of impulse regulation. So they might really get involved with social media, may not be able to balance that. Difficulties with stress management, maybe anger. We might see excessive risk taking, things like verbal aggression, potentially self-injury, property destruction, maybe stealing or substance abuse. And so it's difficult because with a lack of emotion regulation strategies, it's really difficult for them to tolerate emotions and be able to regulate them and move to their goals. And so what we in this with the skill system, we try a different approach where you can see this dotted line as that dysregulated response. It goes really, really steep, and goes up sharply, quickly, and then lasts a long time. And so when we talk about replacement skills for them, what we want to do is start earlier in the chain, helping them be able to be more aware of what's going on in that moment, thinking through, being able to make a skills plan and activating other skills. So what they end up doing is really changing the trajectory of the emotion. So instead of it going straight up really fast, they start early in it, they understand what's going on, and it's not that they're going to take the emotion away, but they're going to be able to be present during it and to be able to think clearly during it and to be able to use strategies that work in that moment, and then practice them and practice them so that they get more used to doing it. And so what we're looking to do is like in a more proactive or a prevention sort of model, is that when people are in that lower level, that 0, 1, 2, 3, where they can think more clearly, that's when we really want to do all the learning about the strategies and the practicing of strategies, so that when it comes time, when those things are happening, they're able to learn during teaching moments, teachable moments, because when we're up in that 4 and 5 level, we're not really able to think clearly at all. And so this is a little different. We're moving the teaching, moving the strategies into the lower level so that when they do get to the higher level, they've already practiced and learned them. We're really looking for these off ramps so they aren't on that kind of tower of terror that goes up so quickly for them, because it's very unbearable. When folks lack of emotion regulation skills, it's really scary because they don't have the ability to kind of almost like that tower of terror where it's like an elevator that goes like up really quick or down really quick. It's like we're trying to build in these floors where it's like we have these stopping points where we have strategies that they're able, and that changes that trajectory a little bit so that they can experience emotion and be strategic and be able to move to their goals. Because we're not trying to just, everybody be at a level 2. It's not about that. It's about being effective at all levels of emotion. Okay, so there's self-dysregulation that we just talked about, but there's also something called co-dysregulation. So this is when like people in a partnership have a really difficult time and they kind of engage in behaviors that increase conflict between them. So instead of working together to sort of regulate together, that they're co-dysregulating and kind of not assisting and actually kind of either one or both are escalating instead. And so when we're talking about learning skills, we have resources like an e-learning program and a training program that teaches strategies to both the youth as well as the parents and people in the system, so that everybody in the system is learning strategies. So not only does it help them self-regulate, it also helps them co-regulate together. So things like family members and care providers can learn strategies that can help people sort of manage their emotions in ways that can help both people move towards their goals. Because, you know, the youth have their goals and then we have our goals too. And in that way, we create basically like a common language and a common toolbox to be able to manage emotions together. So, you know, let's just say that we have a youth that's living in a foster home. Well, a lot of times some of these children and adults that we work with use different sort of agencies or different programs in the community. Like they may be interacting in different areas, like maybe in a therapy setting. They're definitely going to be in school. They may be working, maybe they'll go to an inpatient setting. The skill system is used in many, many different settings. And the goal of this is so that when a youth experiences the need to sort of a higher level of service or support, that if the skill system is being used in different parts of the system, whether it be at the community mental health center or at school or in a day program, that the youth is able to transition from home where they're able to have it, go to school where they get the support. And this really helps with generalization, or being able to take skills from one setting, like in therapy, and then moving it into the school setting or moving it into the family situation or a family visit. It also helps with transitions because you know how kids are. It's hard to transition from a bus to a school to a program. So when we have these sorts of strategies and skills in place, it can help with transitions that can be so difficult for people that have either disabilities or emotion regulation challenges. So what I was hoping to do is just take a minute now, just that was a little bit of a background, but I want to explain the skills a little bit in a little bit more detail so that you can sort of get a sense of them. And so I've already talked about it a little bit, but there's something called the feelings rating scale, which is one of the core concepts of the skill system. And so this is just a simple scale, 0 to 5. Like I mentioned before, 0 to 3 is when folks are sort of regulated, they're able to talk and listen. And so this is when you're having sort of a conversation and both people are hearing each other. And then at that level 4 is when the emotions get up a little higher. People are starting to have a hard time sort of thinking clearly. Probably the communication is kind of not going as smoothly. People are a little bit more unfocused. Their behavior is getting a little bit more unstable, but not necessarily at the point of hurting self, other, or property, which is that level 5. And so this is an important concept because we need to have skills that work at all these different levels. And so there are 9 core skills in the skills system. So you can see here that there are also 2 categories of skills here on the right side of your slide. There's the all the time skills. Now those can be used at all 5 levels of emotion, all the way from low level, all the way up to very high levels of emotion. And so these are the ones that we would use and rely on at the lower levels as well as the higher levels. Then there's also a group of 4 skills called calm only skills. And these are usually only used when the person is calm and regulated. So we're going to be taking some time to look through each of these. But the all the time skills are clear picture, on-track thinking, on-track action, safety plan, and new me activities. All the time skills, they can be used 0 to 5. Calm-only skills are problem solving, expressing myself, getting it right, and relationship care. And those are more complicated, they're more interactive, there's more parts of them. And so they require us to be more regulated and able to think clearly. Because we mentioned at that level 4 and 5, it's important that we're not doing, because we can't think as clearly and we don't want to have to be interacting with people. It's going to be more, it's more difficult for us to do verbal processing. It's also more difficult for us to be handling social situations as well as interactivity with other people. So we want to make sure that we're using those when we're able to. Another, because we mentioned before how emotions go up really high and then they last a really long time, the recipe for skills is another important tool. We've talked about the feelings rating scale and the categories. The third one is this recipe for skills. So the idea is that the higher the level of emotion, we have to make sure we're using enough skills. So because we mentioned that it goes up kind of high and lasts a long time, it's important that we have enough skills in our skills plans to be able to help that entire sort of span of the emotion. So if it's going to be lasting several minutes, maybe longer, we want to make sure we have enough skills to go across that. So the recipe is really helpful. Now, it's always important, if you can, to use more skills on what the recipe asks you for, but these are kind of the minimums to help people understand. Now, this is important for individuals, for kids. It's also important for parents and coaches, because we want to make sure when we're coaching somebody up that we're coaching and really helping them on teaching them and coaching them to do enough strategies across to get them across the time span, the time between maybe after school and dinner. We may have 2 hours there, an hour and a half, and sort of making sure we have enough activities and strategies built into that. Okay, so skill number 1 is clear picture. This is important because this is a mindfulness skill. This is an acceptance skill. This is teaching the child or the adult, all of us, to be present in the moment. Now, when you've got emotional dysregulation sort of challenges, it's difficult to be in an emotion. It's difficult to be in the moment because the moment can be very uncomfortable because you're zooming up, having this strong, potentially uncomfortable experience. And so they're not used to getting a clear picture. And so practicing these different steps, what we call the clear picture do's, can help the youth and the adult be clear about what's happening in the moment as it is. And so we notice the breath, we notice where we feel it, we notice what it feels like, we notice our surroundings, we try to learn about senses. We do a body check because sometimes the body is a really good way for them to sort of cue into how they're feeling. We want to be labeling emotions as well as rating the emotions. Now, we already know that rating emotions is super important because it tells us a few things. It tells us which skills we can use, right? It tells us whether we can use our calm only and our all the time or just our all the time skills. And it also tells us how many skills that we should be using at a minimum. And so that rating of emotion in clear picture is really important. We also want to be noticing our thoughts, and we also want to be noticing urges. Because when we notice an urge, it slows us down because a lot of times our folks and ourselves are kind of going immediately from an urge into action. And so we want to slow that process down by noticing what the urge is, kind of labeling it, being clear about it. And then we go in and do, I'm going to go to on-track thinking in a second. But before I do that, I'm going to explain these 2 slides really quick. So looking at the clear picture posted here, that could be a lot for certain kids, right? There's 6 components. And so when you become a skills instructor or you start really working with the skill system, we have to learn how to make adjustments for the person's ability level. So if the person has an intellectual disability, the skill system's even used with less verbal people. And it's used with people with autism and people with severe mental illness. And so the key is to be able to take the core skills like clear picture here and to make the necessary teaching adjustments for the individual that we're working with. And so that's really when we talk about that 2-day training that Thomas and his company are providing. It's a training that I do with my associate, Dr. Gifford. We do it 3 times a year. But if you are able to go to that type of training, that's where you learn how to make adjustments and how to teach the skills for someone maybe that doesn't read and write, or that is 6 years old, or who is, has a mental health problem that affects their learning. There's lots and lots of visual aids and ways to work with the skills system, and that is to be able to get the skills out into the different environments. So if it's like with a child, you'd put visual aids in a backpack, or maybe share it with the guidance department, or with a teacher, or with a bus driver, things like that, where we want to try to get the child or the client or the person to be able to have support sort of during the different transitions that they're going through, so that they're reminded about their skills, because that escalation goes so quickly, that 0 to 5 in 2.3 seconds sometimes. And so the more we can kind of do in that 0 to 3 zone and have visual aids, it can help them stay on track to their goals. This is where I was going before. Remember in Clear Picture where it said, notice your urge? Then we jump over into kind of a transition. We do Clear Picture, and then we do on-track thinking. This is the 2 kind of base skills, from skill 1, Clear Picture, over to on-track thinking, which is that cognitive skill to help them think more clearly. So we have the urge, and then we check it. So let's just say I have the urge to run out of class screaming. So I would check that and say, all right, is that a thumbs up? That means it's going to help me get to my goal. Thumbs down will be, it's not going to help me get to my goal. So for example, it might be, all right, oh, that might be a thumbs down because, maybe my teacher will send a note home and I won't get tablet this afternoon, or whatever. And so check it is a really easy concept for most, even younger kids can really get into the idea of checking their thoughts and their urges and deciding if it's a thumbs up towards their goal or not. Then we turn it, we do cheerleading, sort of getting, because some of our folks, when you have this regulation problem, sometimes you are really hard on yourself and you don't have great sort of self-confidence. And so we have to work on being better cheerleaders. And we have to really work also on making skills plans. And so, for example, we'd want to be talking about a skills plan for when you're in that class and you maybe don't like doing an assignment, or you're coming home and you have chores to do, or you're going on a family visit that's going to be difficult. So we really work on a lot of different skills plans. And then we have the visual aids to be able to help. And we also have the coaching so that they know how, that they have some sort of in the context, be able to get some support. And so the skills plans are about, okay, so I'm at a level 3. I know I can use all the different skills and I need to use at least 4 skills. So I'm going to be doing, and then they learn each of the skills and they learn how to make lots and lots of different types of skills plans. And the coaches do the same thing. And so they're able to have this shared language about all the different things they can do to manage emotions. And so their recipe, when they go to do a recipe, there's lots of different options that really fit the individual and their situation. Skill number 3 is on-track action. And so this is kind of that trifecta, the triangle of the base of skills, which is we get a clear picture, we do on-track thinking, and then we take on-track actions. And so on-track thinking is on-track thinking that gets to their goal. On-track actions are steps to get there. And there are different types here. Things like switching tracks. So if they're off track, they get on track. They make plans like on-track action plans. These are just really helpful. Next one is safety plans. So safety plans help our kids and us manage risky situations. We learn how to see risk clearly, not overestimating it, not overrating it, not underrating it. We figure out different ways to manage it using talking safety plans, written safety plans with visual aids, knowing what to do. Sometimes we have to stay in class and do our work. And sometimes we do have to leave and maybe go wash our face in the girls or boys room. We have to know when to stay and when to move and where to go and when to do it. just using vision. Now, not every child is going to be able to read and write. And so we want to individualize it, give them like a toolbox or a menu of different things. So this is an example of like a written safety plan for a youth that maybe doesn't read and write, but you can use pictures. And so these are some of the safe places and the new me activities that they can do for their safety plan. And that gets us into new me activities, which is skill 5. And so these are different ways that people can, different activities that we do to focus our minds, to feel better, to distract ourselves, and to have fun. So these are all the things that we do during the day that help us, serve these different functions. So those were all of our all the time skills. Now our calm only skills, as we mentioned, now these are the ones that are more challenging and more interactive, but so important because these get to sort of the underlying issues in the person's life. So maybe that problem solving is important because maybe the youth needs to talk to the teacher and solve a problem that's going on with class, or maybe we need to do problem solving about a bus situation. So problem solving helps a person get a clear picture of the problem, walking through and listing out options and trying to make different plans. Expressing myself, well, there's a lot of different ways, that a lot of things we need to express. Some folks overexpress and some people underexpress, but there's lots of different ways to express ourselves these days. And so learning the best way, and we want to make sure that we're sort of in that 0 to 3 zone when we're doing it. Next one's really important, especially for us all in this call. This is called getting it right. Now, this is how we get things from each other. And that's, the kids all need things from parents and foster parents, and foster parents all need things from kids, like asking, we're always kind of asking each other to do things. And so getting it right is a really nice skill because it has a lot of elements built into it to really make people want to do things for you. And so it's about being in the right mind, making sure we're 0 to 3, make sure we're talking to the right person at the right time and place, using the right tone and the right words. And the right words are sugar. So it's kind of like being polite to each other, explaining the situation, asking for what we want, listening, and sealing the deal. So this can be a really important skill in programs and in homes, so that we can practice that, because people get a lot more of what they want when they're using getting it right. And the last skill is relationship care. So relationship care is really about that relationship. We want these kids and ourselves to build a stronger relationship with ourselves. And people have a lot of trauma and difficulty, a lot of historical challenges, that they often have sort of a damaged core self. And so we want to be building these skills so that they can be more self-aware, more self-accepting, more self-valuing, and more self-trusting. We want to teach them how to have two-way street relationships. We want to teach them how to change off-track relationships. We also want to help them take the steps of responsibility, so when they do go off track, they can repair their relationships. So that's just a really quick overview of the skills. And I thought maybe what I'd do is I'd just show you the e-learning kind of quickly, because this is kind of where people learn the skills. And let me just go transition to that, see if I can do this without losing us all. I'll try anyway. All right, so here's the e-learning. And this is just a test account that I have that I thought I would show you. And so this is one of the resources that Thomas and Hannah and Raneem have for you. It would be access to the e-learning. And so there are 2 basic courses in there. Course 1 is the skills basics. Now, we've got a quick intro about the 9 skills and the 3 system tools. And that's in course 1, skills basics, and that teaches all that in more depth. And then there's course 2, which is skills coaching strategies. So everybody does course 1, and anyone that wants to coach anyone. So when I say a coach, it's really anybody that wants to help the youth or help the adults that you're supporting, help that person use skills in their lives and help them manage their emotions. And so usually parents, foster parents, professionals will be taking both course 1 and both course 2. But I wanted to show you this toolbox of downloadable resources you've already got. And I should have reminded you that when we were, silly me, when we were looking at those posters, those are all on your app. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that, but in your skills system app, the middle button is the skills posters. Let me just, I'll show this to you really quick. Okay, so come on now, Julie. Okay, so here's your skills app if you have that, and you can see the different components. And here are the skills posters, and let's just go look at Clear Picture. So they're all there. All these posters are there that we're talking about. So there we mentioned, oh, notice the urge. We go right over to on track thinking. We go right on to on track action and through our skills like that. So this is a nice little tool that you can download anytime, and it's available too through your toolbox here. But when you get access to your e-learning, there's all these other resources too. There's songs and posters. You can see all the posters here. These are all the ones that are on the app as well. And so you can get so whether you have it on your phone or you just have these at home, and these are really good for shoulder to shoulder coaching, like maybe in the morning, getting up and getting ready for school or going to work. And you can put these in like poster size, you can make them page size. Like what I like too is like just having like a notebook of all the different ones that you can look at together. And you can, like, for example, here's Clear Picture. So this is nice for shoulder to shoulder coaching, just walking through it together. Let's just go look for a second, go back to the e-learning. And so let's go in and look at course 1, for example. So course 1 takes about 2 to 3 hours altogether to do, but you really don't do it all at once. It's really good to do in small chunks. You can see the videos are listed over here on the left, and each one is one of the skills. And you can see they're between like 3 and 5, 7, 8 minutes long. So they're short. So if somebody has a short attention span, it's perfect. And so we'll just click on one here. We'll go to number 1. You can see the intro is 3 minutes long. The videos are colorful and kind of fun. And then there's practice exercises afterwards that are really built to teach, not to like drive you crazy and make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. When you get to 85, you can take them as many times as you want. And they're pretty simple, which is good. And you get 85%, you earn your badges. And so as you can see all these different badges, and that's kind of fun to do. You also can easily track your progress. You can, all right, so because you may have 20 minutes and go in and do 1 or 2 or after school or whatever. And you can, now okay, I'll go to Clear Picture now. And you can see, oh, this is a 7-minute video. You watch this and you go through Clear Picture, learning that, and you do your exercises. And so you just kind of chunk your way through it, which is good. Let's go look at course 2 quickly. So course 2 is very similar to course 1, takes again about 2.5 to 3 hours to do. And just like course 1, it's got short videos on the side, same thing. It's got some visual aids and you earn your badges. But I just want to show you one thing that's kind of interesting. If you're working in a program, you can get your own e-learning membership where you can add people to it. We have group memberships where you can add, like if you work at an agency and you want to use the e-learning that Thomas and I can give you, and you can add not only yourself, but you can add other people. And it's super simple to add people. You're the administrator of it, and all you do is go in and put the person's first name, last name, and email in there, and then they get to join the e-learning also and do it. So if you think about it, if you're, say, a foster mom and you are dealing with, folks at school and you've got a therapist for the child, that if you have a group membership, for example, you can add the youth in, you can add the teacher in, the guidance counselor, the therapist, the bio mom, so there's different people. If you've got, sometimes the children we work with have a very complex system that's changing. Sometimes in the spring, there's one set of people, then they transition to another school year, you've got a whole nother set of people. And so we have different types of memberships that you can add and take people out from. And so if you're interested in learning more about this, Raneem and Hannah can talk to you more about it. It could be good for if you have like a child with complex needs, then these types of things really help getting your team all up to speed, knowing skills and skills coaching strategies. Even if the child is not like that, if that child is a vulnerable learner, then we'll make sure we have to have some instruction for that child, but it's really helpful to still have the team able to know how to rate, how to advise the child and coach the child to manage their emotions.
Hey, Julie.
Yes,
I have a question in the chat.
sure.
Sarah's asking, are we able to print the posters from the app for home use or share with the school?
You can't, as soon as you, so the e-learning's free for you guys. So ordinarily it's $20 a year, right? So that the ordinary person out in the world pays 20 bucks. They get all the e-learning and they get all the posters. So it's a download. Those PDFs, you can't, I think it's hard to download them from the app, but as soon as you get in the e-learning, you can download them from there. Yeah, definitely. You can print them. You can send them to school. You can make them little for a little backpack size. You put it on a tablet, you know, so there's lots of different things. You can put all of them, or you can just say, all right, you know, we're working on this one. See, that's what you really learn at that 2-day is how to like create visuals that they take to school, take to work, wherever they're going, and that they can really use that to in the moment use the strategies that they need to. But that's a really good question.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, let's keep going because you know how many I got about, what do I have, like 10 minutes left?
Yeah.
All right, let me just go through this really quick. So what are some of the advantages of this? So it's a positive, you know, it ends up being like, has lots of visual aids. It can be used across a lot of different providers. It's easy on any device. It also, the e-learning is good because it's a self-paced. You can do it at your own pace, at your own time. And there are letters of completion. So I think, and people can use it when they're at work, you know, so it's just an overall pretty easily, you know, it's an accessible tool. It's important though, we're dealing with a lot of people, whether it's foster parents or care providers or kids with a lot of different abilities, different ways of communicating, different developmental stages and ages, languages, cultures, challenges, diagnoses, different types of environments, countries, states, like there's a lot, like, and so it's important that we're able to tailor the instruction to the youth, to the family, to the system, to the agency. And that, like I said, that's really where you learn that at that 2-day instructors training, where we learn how to teach skills, we learn how to do some coaching, as well as we start thinking about how to implement it within this system of support. Let me just, sorry about that. Okay, I'm just to finish up, I'm just gonna go through like a coaching scenario and then we'll finish up with some questions. And so this is just a hypothetical situation that I created just to show you. Okay, so Sandy is a 15-year-old who lives with a foster family. She experiences emotional regulation challenges. She has a history of running away and self-injury. And Sandy's learning the skill system to help her manage her emotions. And one of Sandy's goals is to finish high school. Joyce is Sandy's foster parent, and their case manager added Joyce to the e-learning. We can say it was Renee, maybe added her to the e-learning, and the foster parent has completed course 1 and course 2 in the e-learning. One afternoon after school, Sandy receives an upsetting text from her biological mother who has mental health issues, and Sandy's concerned about her mother's safety. Joyce notices that Sandy's hanging out in her room a lot more than usual. Joyce initiates a coaching conversation to see if she can help. Joyce asks Sandy how she is, and Sandy says, "Not great. My mom isn't doing well." Joyce notices that although Sandy is upset, she's engaging in a two-way street communication, and Joyce assesses that Sandy is at a level 3. So she's still able to talk and listen. Joyce knows that Sandy can easily go to a level 4 given the situation, so she's going to move ahead carefully, monitoring signs of emotional, cognitive, and behavioral dysregulation. She's going to be aware that she could go from that 3 up to that 4 and 5 level. If Sandy raises her voice or she seems more shut down, Joyce will switch tracks and help her focus on remaining safe. Safety plans and NUMI activities can help in the short term until they can discuss the situation in more detail when Sandy's able to manage the conversation. So Joyce understands that play between when to use the calm only skills and dive into the bigger issues, and when to shift back and to do our NUMI activities and safety plans. And then later when Sandy's able to, going in with those calm only skills. Joyce knows that if Sandy goes to a level 4, it's not the right time to do problem solving, expressing myself, getting it right, relationship care. Doing these calm only skills at level 4 may result in Sandy getting overwhelmed and possibly running away or self-injuring at that level 5. Joyce notices that she herself is getting stressed out. She gets a clear picture herself and she sees that she's at a level 3 and needs to monitor her own feelings. And Joyce knows that if she herself is at a level 4, she also needs to use calm only skill, all the time skills, and not calm only skills. So this is that co-regulation, right? Where we're paying attention to Joyce and Sandy at the same time, because then we can co-regulate or co-dysregulate. So Joyce asked Sandy, can we check in? It could help. Could you help me get a clear picture of how you're doing? And Joyce has a page-sized laminated clear picture poster that she shows to Sandy. Sandy agrees and first notices that her breath is fast and shallow and she feels the air going in and out of her nose. Joyce asks about her surroundings and Sandy looks around. She says she's in her bedroom and it's about 5:30. And Sandy does a body check and she notices her head hurts a little and she has a little stomach ache. And Joyce validates Sandy by saying, you look like you have a lot on your mind. Then Joyce asks Sandy about what feelings she's having and what level it is. And Sandy says she's nervous at a level 3. Joyce reinforces Sandy, you are doing a great job getting a clear picture, even though it's a tough situation. Joyce asks about her thoughts. Sandy says she's thinking about her mom and how she gets when she doesn't take her medication. Joyce validates it's really hard when people we love are struggling. Joyce asks Sandy what she feels like doing. So it's noticing the urge. Sandy says, I know I have a visit tomorrow, but I want to take off now and see her. Joyce validates it's a natural response to want to help her mother. Joyce asks Sandy what she's going to do. So this is where she's asking about her plan. Joyce realizes that Sandy may say, go find my mother, or she might not. Joyce knows that this plan has not worked out well for Sandy in the past. So Joyce remains focused and follows her skills coaching strategies instead of panicking or lecturing. Sandy says, I'm not sure. I want to go, but maybe I'll just talk to her tomorrow. She does this all the time, and I think she's okay. Joyce says, that seems like a really good plan to talk to her tomorrow. It's not easy though. What can you do to feel better and not worry about your mom tonight? She says, well, I'm kind of hungry. I want to make tacos for dinner. Joyce says, well, what skill is that, by the way? And Sandy reports NUMI activity. And Joyce gives her a nod of confirmation and reinforces Sandy's skills knowledge. Joyce says, what other NUMI activities can you do tonight? Remember the rest, we want to have that whole span because this child is probably going to be kind of vulnerable for a while. What other activities can you do? And Sandy says she'll watch TV and then read before bed. Joyce asks what Sandy's going to watch, and she says The Voice on Hulu. Joyce says great idea because Joyce notices that scary shows make Sandy more vulnerable. Joyce says, if you start getting worried or upset later, what can you do? And Sandy says, I'll come find you and check in. When I worry and isolate, that's when I have a harder time. Joyce says, that's good. It's a good clear picture and a good safety plan. I'm here. What if I'm asleep? Sandy says, I'll wake you up. I appreciate that, says Joyce. Joyce says, want to grab the hamburger for the tacos? I'm hungry too. Sandy says, thanks, Joyce. Joyce says, thank you, Sandy, for working hard on your skills. Sandy feels better. Joyce feels glad to be a foster parent. Now, wouldn't it be great if it all went like that? But we want to show it in its perfect form. So I just want to go through really quick before we finish up. Let me just go through. So what was this? Did not seem all that like a big deal, but a lot good was happening. So let's look at it in a little bit more detail in this simple interaction. What was happening? So first, Sandy experienced emotion and made goal-directed decisions rather than relying on repression, which often contributed to her running away. And so she didn't just shut down. Okay, Sandy was able to apply skills in her life, building herself, self-efficacy, and her skill efficacy. She was building a toolbox for herself. Joyce helped Sandy, but didn't do the work for her, right? She just facilitated the work that Sandy needed to do, because Sandy needs to do this at school too. Joyce knew how to be helpful and create teachable moments in a challenging situation, and that helped Sandy build core capacities. And Joyce was modeling skills for Sandy. So she was being a good teacher that way, because she didn't flip out either. Joyce validated Sandy. And so when Joyce validates Sandy, Sandy can validate Sandy. And so it's about self-validation. And that's really important. Joyce positively reinforced Sandy for recalling and using her skills. So she was building a lot of ability there. Sandy was able to have urges and not act on them. In the past, she probably would have like darted out of the house or done self-injury. So that this was an important piece. Joyce helped Sandy build more core abilities that she can use in other settings and relationships. Sandy skills helped Sandy and Joyce be on the same page and co-regulate together. And Sandy could receive similar coaching from other people in her life. So if she has other coaches, it's not just Joyce. She could do it at other family settings or in school if they're able to know the skills coaching strategies after doing course 1 and course 2. So I think we're getting close to where we need to finish up. But I wanted, and we're not going to talk about Sam, because you guys already know that I can really talk about this stuff a lot. So I just want to go over the resources, and then we can answer talk together and ask some questions, but just to kind of go over those next steps. So reaching out to Hannah and at the email would be really great. If you are interested in getting on the e-learning, or at least, seeing if it seems interesting, we will have some access to some 2-day trainings, the instructors training. The next one is on June 26th and 27th. So that could be something, if you get into the e-learning and are loving on it, you could think about doing that, and that can help you tailor the teaching for the people that you live with or support. And then we can also, like I said, potentially set up some e-learning for yourself to use with your systems. So if you have, like I said, a youth with complex needs, we might be able to set you up with an e-learning that you can sort of bring your system of support onto it. Okay, so I think that's about it on this. And should I maybe stop sharing and we can talk together if anybody has any questions, either in the chat or that they would like to ask verbally. Or Thomas, if you have anything you want to add.
No, actually, I lost the last 5 minutes because I got kicked off the site. I had trouble getting back on, so I'm sorry for that.
Oh, we talked all about you while you were gone.
From what I heard, it was a great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Brown, very much.
Oh, no problem. Anybody else have any questions or, any comments or questions?
We have a question in the chat.
Sure.
I apologize. I saw Melanie unmute. We have a question from Jennifer. She's asking, is the instructor training on Zoom?
Yes, it is. Yep. It's all done remotely. It's recorded. So if you can't be there for the whole time, you can go back. You have access to it for like a month. It's got free e-learning with it. Oh, I didn't tell you about the consultation community, but you can also join the consultation community. You get automatic sort of membership into that. We meet once a month to talk about skills. So there's a big library of resources there with videos. So by joining the 2-day training, you really get a lot. You get quite a few resources to really get yourself up to speed, I think.
Okay. Does the system work with someone who has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder?
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely used with folks like that, because part of the challenge there is if folks have a difficulty with executive functioning, they have difficulty sort of recalling strategies and using them in the environment. And so that's really why it's built, like to get more sort of scaffolding and structure supports in the environment. It's also the way that the teaching has to be tailored for people that have learning challenges. Like we have to sort of creatively dissect the concepts to make it digestible, kind of like that mama bird with the baby bird. We have to kind of chew it up and kind of feed it to the babies. And so a person with autism or a person with fetal alcohol or whatever it is. There's so many different types of learning challenges. And the more you know about the challenge, so if you know the youth, you know the challenge, and you know the skill system, you can definitely create relevant, tailored, individualized, customized learning experiences, that can be built into the environment, and really reinforced in the environment. We really learn how to target skills gaps and build sort of where the gaps are. We really can shore those up so that the person can learn how to kind of manage across an entire emotion. And so that's what we really learn in the 2-day training. We do a lot in 2 days, I guarantee you. And what we don't do there, you can join our consultation community and ask questions. It's on the first Friday of every month. So once you do the 2-day, you can join us there. And there's a whole library of videos there if you want to learn more. I didn't mention the book, but there's definitely the whole thing is based on the skill system text, which is like $39 at Amazon. And it's got 150 pages of downloadable handouts in it, and child versions are available. So it's a lot of pretty good resources, and all that's on the website that you can look at. Any more questions that anybody has?
Yes, we have one last question from Carolina. She asked, what type of therapy works for, I apologize if I mispronounced this, Asperger's?
Yeah, so it's sort of high functioning autism. Yeah, I mean, definitely the skill system is used with folks with autism. It's very, the same process is in place where, we know about the people that work with folks with autism, understand sort of what adaptations need to be made. There's lots of sort of factors in autism that do affect people's ability to regulate their emotions. And so emotion regulation skills are really important for folks. They have sensory vulnerabilities and other vulnerabilities. And so the skill system really is important to help them sort of manage their internal experiences and help them sort of, be more sort of functional in their relationships, as well as their relationship to themselves and their environment. And so definitely we learn how to tailor. Part of the training is definitely autism is one of the key groups that not everybody that comes there, but honestly, there's a real diversity in the people that are using it. But I would say probably 30% of the folks that are at the training are supporting people with autism. Those are all really good questions, you guys. That's good.
Yes, thank you all for asking. One more question. What was the title of the book that was just mentioned?
Yeah, sorry. It's right up there. I'll show it to you. So so this is the one with the blue. Don't get the one with the yellow. That's the old version. So it's the Emotion Regulation Skills System for the Cognitively Challenged Client. And so, and like I said, and you can get, when you get it, get 150 pages of the downloadable handouts. And these are good to like individualize, but everything on the e-learning goes with this. And so when we do the 2-day training, like for example, there's a 12-week curriculum in the book. Week 3 in the book is Clear Picture. Lesson 3 in the e-learning is Clear Picture. So we have all those tools in the e-learning for Clear Picture, and we have all the resources in the book for Clear Picture. And so between the two resources that we really talk about that at the 2-day training too. So we have lots and lots of tools to teach people to really like understand the concepts and then really individualize them. And Elevance is making it all free. So that's incredibly cool. Other than the book isn't free, but it's pretty cheap for what you get. It's like $39.